Hello there. Welcome back to Xpanded Universe. I'm Michael Allen Blake.
And I'm Mairead Blue.
We're in the middle of our Daredevil season, which
Yes.
means we've moved on to one of our classic off-the-page episodes. Now, when it comes to Daredevil off the page, we certainly have a lot to discuss in the recent
And a lot of
few
opinions.
years, don't we?
I am excited about this. Yes, we do.
Now, we're going to cover, of course, basically the Charlie Cox period of Daredevil, if you will, which covers not only multiple TV appearances, but even maybe a cameo in a movie here or there. We're going to touch on the, I don't know what to call it, infamous or questionable 2003 Daredevil film with
Questionable.
with Ben Affleck
I will
and
give you
Jennifer
your
Garner.
answer. It's questionable.
And just so you don't think we're completely focused just on the live action stuff, we're also going to throw in a quick little trivia bit about Daredevil and his first ever action figure.
Yes.
But having said that, I kind of get the vibe that you'd like to express some opinions about the Charlie Cox version of Dee Dee, old Hornhead.
Oh my goodness. I love this iteration of Daredevil. Now, as you will hear me say multiple times on our various series or episodes of our series, I have come to these characters in a different way than Michael has come to them. So his version or his idea of some characters differs from what my version and my idea of these characters are, because I started much later. In case I... Yeah.
Well, also in a different format.
In case I could make you feel old.
Thanks. Always appreciate it. No, but also because not just a question coming to it later with different interpretations of it, but also mine. In most cases, mine is from the comic book page, and yours is from a live action or animated version. And in Daredevil, it's very much exclusively from the live action version.
That's entirely true, and it's also why, and this is something you hear me say multiple times throughout this whole series. However you get engaged, whatever brings you in, please take part in it, watch the television shows, and then if you like the television shows, please pick up the comic books, because the comic books fill in these gaps and they give you such a history of the characters. And I have fallen in love with the characters more because I have read the comics. That's not how I got started. And he definitely, when I talk about the fact that I first became aware of Daredevil and Matt Murdock through She-Hulk, where the character is only in about an episode and a half, 2 episodes maybe.
Right. If those haven't seen it, we're talking She-Hulk Attorney at Law, available on Disney+.
Yes. And then because of that, I started to watch Daredevil, the Netflix version, and then the Disney Hulu Plus version. Only after watching those episodes did I then pick up the comics. And when I picked up the comics, that's when I thought, oh my goodness, now I understand Matt more. That being said,
there was...
I love the television show.
It's true. As a matter of fact, to the point that I remember there was one major, not necessarily an issue you had, but the one thing that shocked you about Matt when you started reading the comics, because you were so used to Charlie Cox.
Yes.
Do you know where I'm going with this, or want me to actually say
It's the hair?
It's the hair.
The hair.
If you've never read a Daredevil comic, Matt is a ginger. He's a redhead.
He is! And his hair flows. In the comic, it flows the way they draw it. Mm-hmm. It does not flow in the television show. That's okay. Charlie Cox is handsome. He's gorgeous. I think he's great. But he's not a ginger. He is English, though. Not
that all redheads are English, but the phrase ginger generally is something you'll find used in Britain as opposed to the U.S. on redhead. Just to clarify that.
But when
you're a redhead, you must have a British accent. No, why?
That's so unfortunate. But it is interesting because if you start with the television show, Charlie Cox is he does a great job of becoming this brooding, dark character. And then you read the comics, and he is this ginger, and he has his dark moments. Mm-hmm. He's also a ladies' man. He gets around. He goes to fancy parties. He has a really fancy home, by the way, which does not occur in the television show.
Go back to the fancy parties. Explain. As somebody who's lived in New York, explain why it's unusual for somebody working in Hell's Kitchen to get invited to these.
Oh, dear goodness. So Hell's Kitchen, in the time period in which these comics were written, Hell's Kitchen was downtown. All the fancy parties were uptown, so Upper East Side. upper Midtown, not even all of Midtown, upper Midtown, all by Central Park. So he would have to have taken a car, driven a taxi, but it would have been rare that he even would have mingled with the people.
Two different worlds.
Two different worlds. And yet there he is. And he dates all these women that are part of this society. And you never understand, or you're never shown how he meets them. But and he does, clearly. And I just don't understand at all. But it's so much fun to learn about. This is why I go back to, you don't have to come at the comics or the stories from a serious standpoint. You can become serious about that. That's incredible. But you also can just find entertainment and enjoyment in the stories and just the peculiarities of what they are and what they try to give off. So I've very much enjoyed it.
Right, and he's had, and Matt's had he's had an incredible number of great storytellers over the years. People tend to focus on just a couple of them, but yeah, they've really worked on him, because he's stayed in almost continuous publication since he was. They occasionally rebooted him, taken off the board for a little bit, but he's been around almost continuous publication since he was created, which is unusual in the comic book world. So clearly, while he was not always an A-list character, doing something right. But of course, we're focused on the Charlie Cox one. That's the most important one. That was actually not Matt's first live-action appearance. He goes back a little bit. So a lot of people have heard of the Incredible Hulk TV show. Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, very popular one. After it ended it ended 70s, I believe, or the 80s, whenever it was. But in the late 80s, they decided to try to bring it back for a series of 4 made-for-TV movies. To put it in perspective, only 2 of them were made.
I was going to say, it didn't get to all 4.
But one of them was called The Trial of the Incredible Hulk. And it was the Incredible Hulk in New York, put on trial, and his lawyer was Matt Murdock. So it was actually Daredevil's first opinion, played by Wanaka Rex Smith, I think, for the guy's name, and actually wearing an all black costume, which now viewers are familiar with because of the Netflix series and such. But at the time, I think a lot of people didn't realize Matt had worn all black. Yeah. But it was Daredevil's first on-screen appearance. He sent it as sort of a backdoor pilot to a Daredevil TV show, which obviously did not happen. But Rex Smith was Matt, and even had John Rhys-Davies as Wilson Fisk. Perhaps the only time we've seen Wilson Fisk on screen with hair.
Well, also, where would our viewers recognize Jonathan Rhys-Davies from? If they were not familiar.
Well, this day and age, people would write The Lord of the Rings. I often say Raiders of the Lost Ark, but also just a tremendous actor. If you've ever seen the miniseries I, Claudius, if you're into just really incredible acting and Roman history, the miniseries I, Claudius, done, I think maybe in the early 80s, late 70s, is incredible, especially if you watch it now, because all these British actors who went on usually to great science fiction roles are in it very young. Like Patrick Stewart has his natural hair. Tells you how long ago that was. But anyway, yeah, so to wrap that up, he's either, you might know him as Sala from the Indiana Jones stuff, you might know him as Gimli from Lord of the Rings, you might know him as Arturo from Sliders. The gentleman's been around. Really good actor, even in Star Trek Voyager at some point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm going off on tangents, so let's bring this back. So, actually, we've spent more time talking about Trial of the Incredible Hulk than most people probably spend watching it at this point. I feel like I stepped on a joke you're going to say later when I say that.
Oh, no joke here. But I will say, one of the things that I love about the television show, the Netflix and then the Hulu Plus, I know we said it in our previous, the Charlie Cox era. The Disney Hulu Plus one is the Born Again series, but same actors. It's so realistic, and they also film in Manhattan. One of the interviews that Charlie Cox does later in time, part of the publicity tour for the series, he mentions he was in the East River, and it's cold. And I was telling Michael this. I listened to the interview, and when they're finally done filming, I think it makes sense. Everyone knows it's more than one take. You don't it's rare that you go in, take one, and you're done. And his suit, and we will talk about suits later when we come to the Ben Affleck 2003 movie, but his suit, though well designed, well functioning, still carries water and carries the cold. He literally he told everyone once they were done, can't talk right now. He went to his dressing room. He told his dressers, please take this off as quickly as you possibly can. Don't worry about if it rips or anything. It needs to get off of me, because he was so cold, but he was filming in the actual East River. I think that adds this wonderful realistic component to it. I also think, too, it's important to point out, this is a little bit of a side note, or I guess maybe a twist in the conversation. While the television series, the first real series on Netflix, follows the comic book a little bit, I would say, more closely, the Born Again series that's Disney Hulu Plus does not follow the Born Again comic, which I find to be interesting, having come to the show first and then to the comic book later, because watching the Born Again series, it's tight. You understand who the villains are, you understand the players. They don't mess with extraneous noise. If you read the comic, there's so much else going on, and the relationships are different. Karen is not the same character that she is she's not the same character in the comic book that she is in the television show.
Right. What I will say about them is in both the comic and the television show, Born Again, appropriate title because it is about sort of the rebirth, the coming back, and those sorts of things, but it's completely different stories. And I understand why Marvel maybe chose that as the subtitle for the second series, because it's such a well-known Daredevil storyline. But yeah, if you are comparing them, they're completely different stories. Very enjoyable. Both are worth consuming.
Yes, absolutely.
But you should definitely not associate the two of them. We should definitely associate the one with the other.
Well, and I think that's a good way to phrase it, because when I read the comics about the comics that influenced the first iteration of television shows, I thought, oh, this is really great. The television shows followed the comics. The comics are just giving me additional insight into the characters. Whereas I read Born Again and I thought, oh, this is insight. This is really different insight. It is not the same storyline that I saw. And it's not, how do I say, it's in no way a bad storyline. It's just so different.
If you were anticipating there to be like, oh, it's a different interpretation of it.
Right.
No, it's just it's
an entirely different story. But again, it's a great story, but it's different.
Well, somebody's that's perfect, because if you've enjoyed Daredevil on Netflix and Disney, you can pick up the Born Again comic and be completely surprised. Have a whole other story, whole other characters and such. Remember, some of Born Again is actually, I believe, more similar to some of the more recent Daredevil comics. Whereas, we should back up, Born Again, the comic storyline was from the 80s. And so this also says that it's not a problem. It just means that there's been a growth in the characters. There's been a growth in the story elements and all sorts of things. So they really are sort of very far apart. And again, both enjoyable, both a lot of fun. But switching back to the Charlie Cox one for a second. Sorry. Back to the Daredevil storylines. I also find Born Again is very different from the Netflix version, because while it's definitely the same continuity, the visual language, it's shot so differently.
I think they were given more freedom to not just. I think that, well, freedom and money, to be fair. Money makes a difference.
In Hollywood, definitely.
In Hollywood. To have different types of shots. I know a lot of people talk about the hallway scene, and that's the Netflix version.
Yeah, it's a classic hallway scene. You can probably Google it and find it. It's amazing. So I think also it's in the first episode, but it sets the tone for sort of, this is not a superhero that fights come easily to him. He has to struggle his work. His thing really is his stamina and putting up with it. Like, you see him, it's all done in one take, and you see him getting exhausted, which, sounds like weird to say that's a good thing, but it really adds to sort of the authenticity, and like you feel like you're in the story with him, because nobody can realistically fight for 10 minutes straight without being completely exhausted.
And they do more of that in the Disney Hulu Plus Born Again series. One of the things, so when Michael was saying, no one can actually do this physically without getting tired, and they do a good job of showing that. I think that is what is so interesting to watch when you watch the television show versus reading the comics, because I know when I first started reading the comics, I told Michael, the fight scenes are so much easier to read, because when you have to watch them, they go on, right? Whereas the fight scenes, you can if you're into fight scenes, awesome. But if you're not into fight scenes, you can kind of just read it and go, oh, okay, yeah, blood spurt, okay, kapow, and then it's done.
There's a sound effect, there's a scene look.
But in the television show, you have to watch the whole thing, and it works. But they definitely they don't shy away from the fact that Matt is human and he doesn't have superpowers. He has heightened sensory abilities, but he does not have a superpower like some of the other heroes in the Marvel or the DC universe.
Because there's a part of even in the first season where Claire Temple, the nurse, has to sew him up in this and that, and she warns him about what he's doing.
Also, Claire Temple, another woman that he hooked up with. He's a player. He is.
So he's not a playboy, he's a player. He's a little both. But
I'm just saying, he's a player. He likes the ladies, which is
fine.
And
he keeps getting away with it, too.
He does.
That's the thing that's also amazing about this. But yeah, but also one thing I liked about it as a comics fan, again, so the truth be told, I was never a huge Daredevil fan. Not against him, I just didn't read a lot of his stuff. So, but you're familiar with certain beats about it.
Wait, do you understand everyone? He's saying, see, he found out the trick to get me into comic books, and he decided, well, this isn't my favorite character, but she seems interested, so I'll sit through it.
I believe in aiming for your audience. Any good communications professional will tell you have to figure out what your audience wants and how they want to consume it, and then you aim for that.
If I interrupted.
I was a lobbyist, what can I say? But, no, but one thing I enjoyed is certain of the major beats, yes. And especially in the Netflix show, there's someone that's also boarding in as well. They did a great job of, if you know the character, but not so that well, you could still be surprised by certain things. For instance, without having too many spoilers, the fate of Ben Urich.
Yes.
In season 1, because Ben Urich is a staple of the Daredevil stories, and then some of the Spider-Man stories too. So of course I was familiar with Ben Urich, and what happened, I was like, oh my gosh, that was shocking. Yeah. Or also, I didn't actually know Bullseye's real name until actually season 3. So when you're going through the introduces character, I wasn't like, oh, this will be interesting. I was like, okay, interesting character. And then when something about his background started to click, I'm like, wait, is that Bullseye? And so the way they brought it in was very sort of organic and very good. And also, even people like me who were familiar with some of the comics, there was just enough of a fake out. Well, there's just enough to say this is consistent, you will recognize this, and enough of a fake out to want to make us feel comfortable to want to watch more, but also intrigue us and introduce to us this concept of, I actually don't know what's coming. I may have read the story before, because lots of comic book adaptations can hew a little too faithfully to the comic, which that's a problem. You enjoy the comic, but I'm like, if it's in a different medium, I'd like to see something slightly different. You don't have to completely radically change it, but tell the story. There's your freedom to tell the story another way. Maybe correct some things here or there. And I thought the Daredevil TV show did an amazing job of that.
Well, and I think too, to build on what you just said, one of the reasons why Michael always teases me about the fact that I like some of the quote villains is because the TV show does. I do, but the TV show does a great job of humanizing them. So when Michael talks about the build up to learning who Bullseye is, you learn about him as a person first. Then you discover that he's Bullseye, and I think it causes the viewer, I mean myself and you, to decide, well, which part of Bullseye do I like, and do I really feel as though he's a villain? And the show gives you multiple reasons to either view him as a villain or view him as a person and actually like him. And I think they do the same thing with the Punisher, and that's why even though I know they're not the heroes of the story, I truly enjoyed watching the episode. I mean, in the television series, they spent a full episode on giving you Bullseye's backstory, and it really, Matthew didn't show up at all in that episode,
and it pays off not just in that season, but then in future seasons. If we equating the Netflix series with Born Again, because then in Born Again season 2, at that point you can let Bullseye kind of run loose as you think about the comic Bullseye. Okay. You've seen his backstory in previous ones, and that sort of informs us. That's in the back of your head, but you don't have to take the time to inform, like, oh, by the way, remember this. You've seen this, and everything kind of comes together like that. Right. And that is a really interesting way of looking at it. Also, going to take one step back. So we, because of production issues, we're never really sure what order this kind of goes out in, but we have filmed up a series on the Punisher as well that may not be out yet. And if it hasn't come out, go check it out when it goes. But if it does go out first, then it's known that as much as you like Matt Murdock and Charlie Cox, the Punisher is how you really fell into this whole situation.
It's true.
We didn't show up to season 2.
I know.
But he's the one. And not just the Punisher, but specifically the John Barenthal Punisher.
Yes, I do like. Listen, I can see the love there. I understand why Karen Page, the character, thought that he had good in him. I felt that. I felt that strongly. I also think he's handsome, so there's that too.
So that make him more, so because he's handsome, that make him more of an anti-hero or an anti-villain?
See, you ask me that question all the time, and I don't have a good answer for it.
But talking about straddling that line, bringing it back to Daredevil for a second,
Yes.
the other thing I really like about Charlie Cox and his approach is you really feel that tension between them, that whole thing. And we discussed this in an earlier episode on Daredevil. We talked about this whole thing about, the law versus, his Catholicism versus his sense of justice, his sense of retribution and vengeance. And that's a tough thing to convey. And Charlie Cox, I think, does an amazing job of bringing that forward. And it's a very difficult thing, because here's where I'm going to transition. And this is not shade of this individual person. This individual person is a good actor. And because he's from Boston, we have to give him a pass.
Yes.
But the person become, I think, much better actor than the 2003 movie version of Daredevil with Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, very good actor. Like, I think Hollywoodland is an underrated role for him. Very stuff. He's good as a main guy, but also very good in supporting roles. I just didn't feel that from the 2003 version. I didn't feel like he actually nailed it. In some ways, it felt almost more like a bad Batman impression than actually trying to capture. I mean, he tried. Don't get me wrong, he tried, but it just wasn't. It wasn't. I think Charlie Cox is able to nail the central conflict of what it means to be Matt that I didn't feel from the Ben Affleck. Maybe that part of that was the script he was given. Maybe part of it was how he challenged it. But I didn't feel that at all from the 2003 version.
I think, too, the issue with the 2003 version is that it hit this period of time in filmmaking, and filmmaking when it came specifically to comic book characters. They didn't know where they wanted to go. If any of you go back and watch this movie, you'll see so many tropes from the early 2000s that are just thrown into this film. It's as though they couldn't pick one lane and stick with it. So between the music and the product placement and the outfits and the way that they cherry picked the storylines from the Daredevil comics, nothing is developed. It literally is though, it it sounds terrible, but it's as though they just threw paint at the wall and called it art, which people do. Don't get me wrong. Famous people do. They pay a lot of money for it, but there's no consistency to the film. I know when we were watching it, I turned to Michael and I said, especially with the outfit looks as though he's going clubbing, and Michael,
which could be how he meets all those women.
That's possible. Yes. Maybe that is. I mean, literally, it's these light leather pants. The pants aren't light, but they're not tight skin. This honestly, think back, any of you who went out clubbing in the the early 2000s, and you remember how leather was this cool thing, and the pants were tight but not too tight. That's what his whole outfit looks like, and it's just awful.
Because I'm also going to date this a little bit here, but it's like there used to be an SNL skit called Sprockets. Okay. It was about our producer is laughing at it. It's like I feel like that outfit would not have been out of place in a Sprockets scene in Saturday Night Live.
So I don't know what Sprockets are or is, but again,
wow, I feel really old all of a sudden.
I mean, just you just look at it, you want to say that's not functional, and he's flying across buildings.
Right, yeah, not just even jumping, leaping. It's like I get it. They're like, we're happy with our special effects. We're going to do these things. We're going to have him leap in such a way and not shatter his kneecaps when he lands.
No, I'm happy you mentioned special effects, because it looks as though they were experimenting with new technologies that had not been used that frequently, and so they were just happy they had this new toy. It does nothing to move the story forward, to make the movie more interesting. And again, everything is fast. And this is my other issue too. As any of you who are listening to this and understand by now the character of Daredevil, he's blind. He can't see. They added all of these weird visuals that made it look like
sense.
His radar.
It's difficult to do the radar sense sometimes, but how they chose to do this.
Yeah. So, anyways, I would say watch it if you want to have a great conversation about how the early 2000s may or may not have made great action movies. But speaking of action, we should move on to the toys.
We should. Before I want to say, it occurred to me as we're talking, the one thing that the movie did do well.
No. See, look, he's grasping. He's grasping
No.
for straws.
No. I think you'll appreciate this. It shows how Matt can be creepy and still meet women.
Oh. For any of you who watched the Supergirl series that we made, and I commented about the landscaper being creepy. Oh no, this just continues the trend. He literally stalks Jennifer Garner's Elektra character, and they fight in front of children. In front of children.
2 words for you: playground fight. And that doesn't mean what you think it means. Google Daredevil and playground fight, see what happens. If you want, put it in the comments. We'll talk about that more in the 4th episode. Because you're right.
Stalker.
And because we want to be respectful of our people's time. So to wrap up, I did promise we're going to talk very briefly about Matt Murdock's first action figure.
Yeah.
So we promised you to touch briefly on Matt Murdock's first episode, Daredevil. There was a line of action figures put out by Marvel Comics and their partners called the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. And to support it, the action figures by Mattel, and support Marvel put out a limited series called Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which is all about their main heroes and villains coming together. They're fighting. It had 12 issues total over the course of a year. Lots of characters that Mattel could choose from to make characters out of. Daredevil was not in the series at all, and he was in the second wave of figures. Now, to be fair, about half the figures they produced were not even in the comic series at all. But technically speaking, that means that Daredevil was one of... not first, there's a whole group called Miko who'd done a bunch of action figures earlier, but he was in... he was one of the earlier Marvel heroes to actually get an action figure. But it was in 1984. And apparently, if you're into action figures, it's an amazing figure, don't get me wrong. But completely randomly, because he was not in the supporting limited series at all. And yet they still put him in there.
But see, I feel as though that traces the trend of Daredevil, where he's never been the most popular character, but he pops up. They kept choosing him, which I think, and I use the word choose on purpose because they could have overlooked him and said, no, I mean, he's there, he's part of our history, but we're not going to touch him. Yet they continue to try to bring him back, and I think that's why the TV series is so unique in this time frame, because I think they've finally gotten it right. And now you have lots of people who want to pay attention and who want to watch it. You have me. I mean, again, this television show is how I came into the comic world. So I think they've opened it up to a whole new audience.
Took them 40 to 50 years, but they finally got it right.
They did.
I like that. So then on that note, I think we will wrap up this episode. Please join us for our next couple ones. The next one, we're going to talk a little more in depth. Normally we talk, in our 3rd episode, we talk about the different variant versions. There's not been a lot of variant versions of Matt, but there have been a lot of interpretations of them in different storylines and such. So I think we will talk about that. And also we're going to come back and talk about especially how Charlie Cox is interpreting him. And clearly he's doing something right because he's getting people like you to love the Matt Murdock character.
And not just because he's handsome.
And not just because he's handsome.
I'm just saying, I really like his interpretation. I do. He's also handsome, but I like his interpretation as well.
And on that note, please drop any comments you'd like about this video. We will address those in episode 4. We hope you come back and join us for episode 3. I am Michael Allen Lake.
And I'm Mairead Blue.
This has been Xpanded Universe, and we hope we have sparked your imagination.
Yeah.
And on another note, as we close, I just want to add that the world can get a little bit hectic sometimes. They get a little bit loud, a little bit crazy. Please make sure you're always taking time for yourself, because remember, you are here, you exist, you matter. And that is something that you should never take for granted.